Well, another really beautiful morning here in southern Wisconsin. We've got a giant region of high pressures kind of sliding southward over us, as you can see on the surface map right here, centered right over the state. But the actual center of it is much farther to the north on the western shore of Hudson Bay in Manitoba. And that is ensuring, because the distance between these isobars, the lines of constant sea level pressure, which are drawn in white on this map, since they're so far apart in the horizontal, the winds are very light. And that means that even though it cools off overnight, and part of the reason is because it is windless, it warms up pretty fast. So we should have another pretty nice day today. Certainly abundant sunshine. And as I mentioned earlier this morning, the snow is just disappearing day after day with very little or no evidence of water trickling down the side streets. It's not one of these really aggressive melts. It's a very gradual melt. Some of it's soaking into the ground, which is great for the farmers and great for agriculture generally. And some of it's just sublimating away, going right from the solid state to the vapor state, so it leaves no liquid trace. And the more we get weather like this, the more that's going to be the case. It is unusual in my experience to have had a 15 or so inch snow cover in mid to late February and have it be so unfloody, for a better lack of a better word, as the snow rapidly melts. We've lost at least 2/3 of that snow cover, and without almost any sort of obvious ponding or anything like that of water that's melted recently. So quite remarkable, and it continues today. And here's a little weak organized weather system over Kansas, parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. We'll see that vividly displayed actually on the radar quite nicely, and on the satellite picture in just a minute. And the only other storm of interest in the continental 48 states is this pretty decent looking disturbance that's got itself organized right off the Oregon-Washington coast. That will also present itself nicely on both the satellite and I think a little bit less impressively on the radar, because we can't look that far west with the radar, but on the satellite quite impressively. So a fairly nice day across much of the country, and that's reflected in the temperatures across the country, which are also not too bad. It's chilly in northern New England. This is at 7 a.m., 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock our time. So 6 degrees at Caribou, Maine. It's pretty chilly, but I don't think it's unusual for early March. It's 17 in Portland, 11 in Burlington, Vermont. So pretty chilly in New England. That's really the only cold spot, aside from the 14,000 or 12,000 foot peaks in Wyoming and the 14ers in Colorado, where it's probably equally in the teens. Everywhere else, the temperatures are above 20 degrees, everywhere. In Madison, 19, well, except for Madison. Madison's 19. Everywhere else is over 20. So a pretty decent day to start. And look at how warm it is already at 7 o'clock Central Time in places like Dallas and Houston and Victoria, Texas, pretty warm. And that warmth is going to head our way. It's going to take its time. We'll probably get here by about Monday or Tuesday, but it won't be quite that warm for high temperatures like they're going to have in Texas today. But it's going to be pretty nice by the early part of the coming week, as we'll see moving forward. So here's the satellite movie over the continental 48 states and adjacent waters, and you can see that little counterclockwise rotating disturbance centered sort of over the border of Kansas and Oklahoma, and it's spreading cloudiness across a wide portion of the state of Kansas, much of Missouri, Arkansas, a little bit of northwestern Louisiana and northeastern Texas, and it seems to be somewhat stationary. This is only about a 7 or 8 hour movie, but nonetheless, that system is kind of stationary, and we'll talk a little bit about that from the radar perspective in just a minute. Contrast the size of this disturbance, which occupies maybe 4 or 5 states to our south, to this huge circulation, which is occurring, and it's kind of centered off the coast of, north of Newfoundland, Cape Breton area of Quebec. And so you can really see this extremely large-scale circulation. It goes all the way from the Caribbean, clouds in the Caribbean are associated with it, to clouds on the southern tip of Greenland, and then the circulation center being just on the west coast of the Labrador Sea. That's a gigantic extratropical cyclone. This is a really small one. This is about the scale range that they come in. They're going to fit somewhere between one of these massive scale systems like the one in the east and the much smaller scale system over our central plains. And every kind of disturbance that you see of this type will be somewhere in that range. They don't get smaller than that. They don't usually get bigger than this. And then the only other disturbance you can see, and it's oblique, we'll look at it from the other satellite perspective in a minute, is this disturbance I mentioned off the coast of Washington and Oregon. And it's spewing cloudiness and likely precipitation into the Pacific Northwest early this morning, and certainly coastal British Columbia. So let's take a look now at the radar from this morning. And here it is over the 48 states, because that's really all we have available to us. There are going to be space-based radars that maybe we'll start to get mosaics from them at some point. That would be great. We don't have them yet, but there are space-based radars now. These are all ground-based. And so here's the precipitation in Arkansas and southwest Missouri on the border of Oklahoma and Kansas. And none of it appears to be particularly convective. That is, it's not thunderstormy. And it's just kind of raining in these places. It's certainly warm enough to be all rain everywhere in this instance. And then this stuff in Illinois and parts of Iowa, I don't think is actual precipitation. It may just be that they've turned the radar sensitivity way up because they want to kind of, you can ask it to give you exceptionally high resolution reflectivity, and that might be done just because there might be some fog in some of these places, and they want to get a bearing on that. And then here is the precipitation on the west coast. You can see it's the elements streaming more or less parallel to the coast, making very slow eastward progress. They will make eastward progress, but it'll take a while. So it's raining along the west coast of Washington State, parts of Oregon, but not really, apparently, in the Puget Sound until maybe the last couple of images. And it'll start to rain all day in Seattle today. It'll be kind of one of those typical Seattle days in the Pacific Northwest. And then let's look at the West Coast satellite image, and that's right here. And this is quite an active image. It's been a while since we've had so much activity in the Pacific Basin, at least the Northeast Pacific Basin. So let me start. Here's one little disturbance. You can see the counterclockwise rotating comma shape to this one that was started over the Queen Charlotte Islands and is now on the north coast of British Columbia. Again, quite a small-scale disturbance. And then the one to the south, which takes shape late in this image, and then it looks really nicely shaped like a big comma and rotating counterclockwise. That's the storm on whose eastern periphery precipitation and cloudiness is streaming across the Puget Sound area and northwestern Oregon State, Portland. And so here's some open cellular convection, sort of popcorn-looking clouds from space. This is evidence of really cold air at upper levels. We'll talk about that within the next week in lecture. The notion of stability and how the stability of the stratification can induce this kind of convective thunderstormy activity. We're going to be talking about that next week. So we're really getting into some meaty subjects that are relevant because we'll see them day to day on the satellite picture. But here's a really nice example, and unfortunately I won't say more now simply because I don't like to predate those conversations with when we don't yet have covered them in class. But there is one other example of this kind of thing where convective showers in the southern Bering Sea are kind of organizing into a little mini cyclone just north of the Aleutians, right where the cursor is. You can see over time that collection of what looked like just a bunch of these popcorn cumulus clouds turns into something a little bit more organized, starts to look like its own comma cloud, which is a mid-latitude cyclone signature. So if you're out there and, venturing forth from Dutch Harbor to do some crabbing, you don't want to be caught in that storm because the seas will be heaving and it'll be cold and snowy and bad news if you're out at sea. But that's things taking shape pretty quickly. So that's a nice active Pacific Basin. Notice that the southern coast of the West Coast, so all the way from northern California down to northern Mexico, crystal clear, and they've got a bit of a break from some weather that they'd been having over a period of a few weeks. Now, since it's Friday, let's take a look at our forecast for 850 millibar temperatures, which are a really good proxy for the surface temperature. So this is a forecast initiated last night at midnight, and this is now valid this morning at 7 a.m. So here we are in southern Wisconsin, and the temperatures are below zero at 850 millibars, so about a mile above the ground. And when they're below zero there, that means they're going to be just a degree or two above zero if the lapse rate is about 8 degrees per kilometer at the surface. Okay, so something just a couple of degrees above or near zero to begin the day. And we're going to have to watch where this cold air, watch where this goes. This is now tonight, looks the same. Tomorrow morning looks about the same temperature-wise over Madison. Same, I'd say, on Saturday night. And then maybe a slight bit of warming during the morning on Sunday. And you can see there's a little warm pocket across from International Falls all the way to far southwestern Nebraska. That may well be because of the air sinking in the lee that is on the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains. But it doesn't really matter why it's warm there because there is going to be slight warm advection into the western part of our state as we enter the day on Sunday. But it doesn't last too long, and it's not particularly strong on Sunday. But notice it starts to get a little more aggressive here in the western plains states, Nebraska, Kansas, the plains of Colorado, and northeastern New Mexico. And that is a harbinger of some warmth for the early part of next week. So let's watch this. This is now Sunday night. Monday morning, we're into the greens. Remember, we started in the dark blues. Green temperatures here are like +6 to +8 degrees C, substantially warmer. And then here's a Monday night. Here's Tuesday morning. Boy, if we were further west, we'd really be looking at a warm day in, say, Pierre, South Dakota, Aberdeen, South Dakota, parts of southwest Minnesota. Tuesday morning looks pretty warm for them. And Tuesday during the day, the forecasts for us are putting us nearly at 60 degrees. I have a feeling the snow cover is going to doom us from not getting to 60 on Tuesday. But there is a chance that we'll see 60 degrees Fahrenheit for a high temperature on Tuesday. Brisk southwest winds at a mile above the ground coming from much warmer locations will help to propel us at least in that direction. So this is now Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, another nice day Wednesday, although there's a little bit of a cyclone that's trying to get itself organized right in this location, southeastern Nebraska, northeastern Kansas, and that comes by during the day on Wednesday into Wednesday night, and there's cold air behind it. This is now Wednesday night, and you can see that cold air in the blues with wind arrows, if you can see them, directed across from cold to warm, and that's going to start to impinge on Madison. So by Thursday morning, we start to feel some cold air advection, and so we cool down a little bit from the earlier week highs of 60s and 50s. And this is now Thursday night. There's a chance that we see a little bit of precipitation, mostly concentrated to our south during the day, late Thursday night into Friday. There might be a little bit of rain Thursday night into Friday. But notice there is a looming pool of cold air to our north by the time we get to the end of next work week. And when we go into Friday night, that cold air seems to be making progress southward. That was the last time, sorry. So it seems to be making some progress southward. If I had to guess, it's going to miss us to the north and east in its brunt, but we'll get considerably colder by the next weekend, I think. It'll be the end of the spell of really pleasant early March weather, because I think Saturday and Sunday of next weekend will be a little bit less favorable for being outside and various activities that might be outdoor activities. I hope I'm wrong, but it doesn't look like it.